Hi guys, welcome to TCR, the Crouch Ranch. I'm Sid, and today I'm going to show you how I make my Christmas cake. Now I like to add a glaze over the top of it, and I actually use the same glaze that I use on my scones, which I did a recipe for week before last. So I'm going to do a brief rundown on that for you today, and then we'll get to making that wonderful, delicious Christmas cake. Okay, so I'm going to start off with zesting some of this lemon for the glaze real quick. Next, I'm going to juice the lemon because you got to have some juice. Next, I'm going to soften a couple of tablespoons of butter. And it kind of varies depending on the amount you're doing. I'm going to add in my butter here that's softened. Might have gotten a little more melted than intended. Now I'm going to sift in enough powdered sugar. Again, this depends on how much you're trying to make, but you can kind of eyeball it till you get the consistency that you want. So I kind of know because I've done this a bunch. This is probably going to be end up being about close to 2 cups. Now I'm going to stir this all together. The nice thing about this glaze is you can make it ahead of time, like the day before you're going to bake, and then once you decide you're going to start baking and you've got your oven preheating, go ahead and pull it out of the fridge and set it on the counter to let it come up to room temperature just a bit. Okay, so now my glaze is all mixed together and it's ready to go sit in the fridge and chill for a few minutes. So for this cake, you do want to preheat your oven to 350 and get that bad boy preheating. You do also want to go ahead and grease that baking pan. Get it ready for that fabulous cranberry Christmas cake that's going to go in here. Okay, so for this recipe, you're going to need 3 eggs. You're going to need 2 cups of sugar, 3/4 of a cup of unsalted softened butter, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 cups of all-purpose flour, as well as a baking pan and a little extra butter to grease the pan with. Trust me, you'll thank me later. You'll also need a 12-ounce package of fresh cranberries. Don't use dried. You can keep cranberries in your freezer. Side note, prepper tip, you can keep your cranberries in the freezer all year long. This is a really great thing to make if you're in a pinch to go to a potluck or something. Pull those suckers out of the freezer and you can make this with pretty much what you have on hand. There's no baking soda, there's no baking powder, there's not a whole lot to it except for, the eggs and the flour and, that. And then you do not have to put the glaze on it. I like to put the glaze. That's like my own separate thing that I do just because I love good glaze on anything. So, but you can leave that off and it's still perfectly delicious without that. I also sometimes will add little bits of cutie to it, cutie oranges. I'm not going to do that this time, but just as a side note, you can do this with blueberries, you can do it with orange, you can do it with, you could substitute the cranberries for chocolate chips if you wanted and be really decadent. Totally up to you, but this is the basic recipe to get you going. Okay guys, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take 3 eggs and 2 cups of sugar and we're going to beat it in our mixer here. My fabulous mixer, I love my mixer. We're going to beat it for about 5 to 7 minutes until the color changes. It's going to get a lot lighter and kind of ribbony. It's a really important step. Don't skip beating this part for that long. Even if you've got a handheld mixer, I don't recommend trying to do it by hand for that long. You probably won't get the right consistency. But if you have, you know, old-fashioned hand mixer or one of these handy dandy kinds, that should work fine for you. You'll be able to get the right consistency on that batter, because that's really important to get the fluffiness and almost coffee cake-like texture that we're going for with this cake. You can see how much lighter it is and the color has changed. So let's go ahead and check it. When I lift this, it should make ribbons kind of sticking to this. It's not, yeah, see, there it goes. So it should be a little bit thicker still. So it's still a little bit runny, and that was about 5 minutes. So I'm gonna let it go a little bit longer. Gosh, this thing's loud, right? So now it's mixed long enough. There it goes. It's nice and ribbony. So now I'm going to add my softened butter and vanilla. And you don't want this melted at all because it's going to change the consistency, but you do want it soft. So if you can leave it out at room temperature for a couple of hours, or another trick, if you forget last minute while your oven's preheating, stick it in something that's you know, heat resistant, that you can sit on top of the stove and let it soften it a little bit that way if it was ice cold out of the fridge. So we're gonna throw this butter and that teaspoon of vanilla, that was 3/4 cup of softened butter and a teaspoon of vanilla. We're gonna go ahead and throw this back in here for 2 more minutes. Okay, so we finished beating in the vanilla and the softened butter. Now we're going to slowly add in the flour, not being mixed. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. We're not using the mixer for this part. You only want to stir the flour in until it's combined. So I'm going to go ahead and add some flour in. I'm going to stir it up a little bit, and then I'm going to add the rest of that, just until it's combined. It is going to look a little bit lumpy and clumpy. It's kind of a strange batter, but trust me, it's delicious. So we got that pretty well combined. Add the rest of that flour. Again, that's 2 cups of all-purpose flour that you're adding in. See, just get it nice and mixed together. Next, we're going to add our cranberries in. So about 12 ounces. The packages I had were 8-ounce packages, and I like it really cranberry-y. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of it. I'm just going to dump that in and thoroughly mix it through. It's going to look weird. It's going to look like lumpy. It actually looks very similar to the scones at this point, but the consistency is a little bit wrong. It's too creamy because it's not like a regular cake batter. It's not going to be liquidy because obviously we didn't really put any liquid in it. So, you know, the only wet stuff that we put in it was the eggs. Everything else is, you know, that and the vanilla and the butter is sort of like its own you know, 3 elements at once, right? it's like solid, it's melty, it's like, there's no gas from butter, but, you know, unless you're lactose intolerant, then that's on you. Don't eat this around friends then. So our next step here is we are going to push this into the pan. And the first time I made this, I thought, oh my gosh, I must have done something wrong, because you think cake, you think batter, you think pour into the pan. No, you're gonna press it into the pan. So you're just gonna dump it all out. I like to kind of scrape it all out first. In fact, I'm probably going to grab my, watch this, spatula so that I can scrape it out better. Like that. All right. Alrighty. Now you're just going to push it into the pan, and this is, you know, you can do this in smaller pans if you want, or in loaf pans. It works best and cooks better at the temperature of 350 for about 40 to 50 minutes, depending on your oven. If you use the traditional 9x11 cake pan, which is what we are doing today. And it's going to look like it's not going to fill it, but it does rise up a little bit when you bake it. So hold it down. And you just kind of want to get it pushed as evenly as you can in here, kind of spread out. It's almost like you're smearing the cream cheese on a bagel, right? So you're just gonna kind of bring it out to the corners, make it look nice and even. It's gonna do its thing, and then you're gonna put it in the oven, and you're gonna bake it until it's done, right? Okay. So you want to do make sure that you don't have any holes when you're spreading it. Dirty. No, just kidding. Not dirty. Just make sure that it's, you know, happy here. We want happy baking. We don't want unhappy baking or depressed baking, suicidal baking. No, we don't want that. All right. I'm going to get that last little bit of, I use the term batter loosely. Get all that off of here. All right. Now, this bad boy is ready for the oven. There we go. Starting to bake in there. And my bad, I know I said 9x11 earlier. I meant 9x13. Okay guys, yes, I know I've changed clothes. It's been a crazy day and we're on our way to go somewhere. So yeah, we're gonna go on a sleigh ride, which I'm also gonna film. So, it's been in there for about 45 minutes and it is done. I just peeked in on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the oven. And it should cook at 350 for somewhere between 40 and 50 minutes. And it is perfect. It is perfect. Oops, I'm dropping dish towels. Drop it like it's hot. Now you don't have to add the glaze to it, but I like to, and I like to do it when it's warm. I did have this in the fridge to just kind of thicken it up a little bit while this was baking. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of drizzle this over it and let it kind of sink in. And this is a great one. You can cut it up into little squares and just kind of spoon this over the top like it's nicely covered. You can let it cool down if you want the glaze to be a little bit more solid, but I like it to kind of drizzle into it a little bit. And it's quite the crowd pleaser. It's light, but it's very flavorful, and people really love it. You can also, of course, if you wanted, you could do a dollop of whipped cream on top or with ice cream, because it's just that yummy. Nice and beautiful. Yum-me. Thanks for watching me make my cranberry Christmas cake, guys, with my optional lemon glaze. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys give it a try. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you get the notifications. Leave me a comment, let me know if you make it and what you think, with or without the glaze. It's all good.